you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion has gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Martin Wagner's on his way, stuck in a little bit of traffic, so we'll go ahead and start without him. It's Sunday, April 13th, 2014. This is the live public access television program. It's a call-in program. They'll have the number up for you on the screen. I don't have much in the way of actual announcements other than after we're done with the show, we get together for dinner at El Arroyo, and they'll put that address up on the screen as well. I've been busy. I did a debate yesterday with somebody who actually called the show. Eric from Mesa, some of you may remember, called the show basically to say that I hadn't argued anybody of merit or substance, and likened me to Kramer on an episode of Seinfeld where he talked about dominating his karate class, and then turns out the karate class is full of little kids. And so Eric, being the master debater, decided he would put together this debate. We did it on David Smalley's Dogma Debate podcast. Originally there was supposed to be a vote afterwards to see how it went. I don't know exactly how we could do the voting. Maybe we throw it up on YouTube, and if you thought I won, then you thumbs up it, and if you thought Eric won, then you thumbs down it. I don't know. I don't really care. I'll let him kind of sort that out. The ironic thing is that the first comments that I got after posting the debate was, why does Matt keep wasting time on these third-rate debaters? So there was kind of an irony there. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that, I thought Eric did a much better job than, let's say, Ray Comfort or some of the other people that have been involved. Anyway, that's up online, and I think maybe Dogma Debate has it posted. I'm getting ready to go to Salt Lake City for the American Atheist Convention next weekend. That's going to be loads of fun, and I'm doing a workshop on debates, a talk just before the keynote, and then kind of a podcasty interview type thing at the very end after it's all over. But this is a call-in show, so I'm going to go ahead and get to calls right now as I watch Martin stroll in the door 3 minutes late. I'm going to dock your pay.
Could have been worse.
We got Todd in Seattle. Thanks for calling. What do you got? It says here that you think we're making a fallacy?
Matt, hello. And hi, Martin, if you've walked into the door.
Hello.
Well, I realize that you guys are kind of at a disadvantage, kind of off the bat, because I've actually seen every Atheist Experience episode.
How would that put us at a disadvantage if we've seen all of them?
How would you see all of them? Most of them aren't archived.
Yeah. I mean, the show's been on for 17 years.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've been to your website. I've watched pretty much almost every YouTube episode.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But you haven't watched all the episodes. So
but in any case, even if you've watched all of them, I don't see that puts us at a disadvantage, and let's get to the point where you think we're being
yeah, I mean, what's
fallacious.
your question?
Well, I've called before. I might as well bring that up as well.
Sure.
I called in as Todd. It was episode 791. I think it was...
we're getting dangerously close to a Saturday Night Live skit where you start referencing episode numbers. Just get to whatever it is.
What's your question?
You're going to say.
We don't need your life story. Just what's your question?
Okay, well, I think you guys are committing a population fallacy, which is actually called argumentum ad populum.
Yes, I'm familiar with the fallacy.
People.
Yes, and how are we making that
Yes,
fallacy?
and how on earth would the people whose position is the minority be engaged in an argument ad populum fallacy? Please explain.
It's not a minority necessarily. You get online and you take an authoritative position claiming that you're right, but yet whenever you're asked a question about the how things began or how things began to exist, that right there is an argument from ignorance trying to interpret something you do not know.
I haven't made any claim about how everything began.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Okay, well,
I'm not claiming that I have the answer to the origins of the universe, and therefore I can't possibly be wrong. Now, can I?
Okay, Matt. Well, You've had episodes where you've said, okay, you cannot pray and prayer doesn't work.
No, actually what I've said is nobody's demonstrated that prayer works, despite actually attempting to do so. I have a personal experience.
Well, so what? I have a personal experience.
And so what? Yeah. I can talk to people who claim they've been abducted by UFOs. Your personal experience doesn't matter one bit.
Okay, but me seeing that all of your episodes, I haven't been swayed to Christianity. I'm sorry, I haven't been swayed to atheism. I'm still a Christian. Okay. After all of the of watching all of your episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Are you going to continue with argument ad episodum, or are you going to actually make a case?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see exactly where the logic is that because you have seen as many episodes as you think you've seen of our show, and the fact that you haven't been swayed in some way proves the existence of God. All it means is that you haven't been swayed.
Maybe you're stubborn.
Yeah, and it's probably because you haven't either engaged with the arguments being presented, or you don't want to be swayed, or you just don't find our discussions persuasive. But it has nothing to do with whether or not what you believe is any more correct than anybody else.
Yeah, sorry to walk over you. I just did a debate with Eric yesterday, and I asked him what would change his mind, and his answer was nothing. So, if you're one of those people where nothing would change your mind, then it's hardly surprising that you haven't changed your mind.
Well, it would take a lot to change my mind. That's the thing.
Okay.
Where you said that, can I speak without you cutting me off for 2 seconds?
No, bye.
Yeah.
Call back.
Yeah. I mean, I kept waiting for his question for us, and he just.
I've seen every one of your episodes, and you're committing an argument. Oh, and you claim that you have the right answer to the to the origin of the universe, when I've done no such thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you should go back and rewatch some of the episodes, because you seem to have kind of the video equivalent of reading comprehension difficulties. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just don't see the point of calling us up and saying, I've watched a whole bunch of your episodes and you haven't convinced me yet. I mean, well, then engage us in some sort of question, ask us something, try to bring up something new, but, simply calling us up and bragging that you haven't been swayed away from Christianity yet, so what? We know a lot of viewers probably think that way.
Yeah, meanwhile, probably
nothing.
One of the most likely reasons that you haven't been swayed away is because you're expecting us to disprove Christianity. You are doing what Eric did in the debate yesterday, which is attempting to shift the burden of proof. And you'll hang on to your beliefs until somebody proves them wrong, which is an irrational way to go about holding on to your beliefs.
Anyway.
So, Geoff in Allentown, thanks for waiting.
Hi. I just wanted to, I saw your show 2 weeks ago when you and Martin were on last.
Yeah.
And you spoke pretty negatively about 12-step programs. And,
yes.
I'm an atheist. I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous. I have been for 7 years.
Isn't Narcotics Anonymous run by Scientology?
Narcotics Anonymous is not run by Scientology. It's a completely autonomous organization, separate from other 12-step fellowships or any religious organizations.
Okay. It's not the same as Narcanon.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's not they have something called. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say. I've been a member for 7 years, and the entire time I've been told that I didn't need to believe in a God. I've been working the steps without a belief in a God, and I find that it's helped me a lot in terms of growing as a human being. And I think that when you portray the group or portray 12-step fellowship as something that you have to believe in God, and that atheists wouldn't fit in there, and things like that.
We didn't do that. I haven't done that. And I've written about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've spoken about Alcoholics Anonymous quite a bit. And I understand that there are groups, and that this is often a group-by-group base, where there are individual groups that don't necessarily put that much emphasis on God. But when you have court rulings that have ruled that Alcoholics Anonymous is in fact a religious-based organization and nobody can be required to go there, the fact that individual groups don't necessarily hold to that is no more compelling than the fact that some Muslims don't, want to kill infidels. I mean, it doesn't change what the foundational aspect of this is. The other things, there's lots of things that I object to about Alcoholics Anonymous, because I think that they promote this idea of victimhood, because right off the bat, you have to begin with, I am powerless to do anything about this, which I absolutely reject. The fact that somebody has not yet been able to get a handle on their addiction doesn't necessarily mean that they are powerless. And what they may need is the empowerment to make those changes and people giving them the tools and helping them out. And I've seen many times where, where it seems to be the case that many of the 12-step programs replace one addiction with another. You give up the addiction to the substance and you replace it with an addiction to working the program. And the last thing that I find just absolutely horrible about Alcoholics Anonymous is that they are deceptive to the point of lying about their recidivism rates. Basically, if you're in the program and you're not drinking, they're going to count you as a success. And if you ever drink, then clearly you didn't finish the program. So there's not a good way to figure out exactly how well this program works, because all you get is the confirmation bias of people who feel that it does work for them and it's kept them sober. And what I've said over and over again is, if it's working for you, if that's what it takes to keep you sober and sane, by all means go for it. I just think there are better ways, and I'm not a fan.
And all I want to say is that all of those, I agree with all of your objections, except that they seem to, like when you say powerlessness is a concept that's defeatist and we should be providing these people with the tools that they need, that's exactly what the steps, in my experience, in Narcotics Anonymous has been, that the steps provide me with the tools to live a life without drugs.
What's the first step?
The first step is we admitted that we're powerless of our addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. And my understanding of that is that using drugs and alcohol for me ruins my life, and that up to the point where I got clean and started working the steps, I was unable or did not have the skills inside myself to resolve that problem, and that I needed to reach out for help. And that help doesn't need to be a God. That help could just simply be the other recovering addicts in the program.
Cool.
And that their experience in dealing with life on a day-to-day basis without using drugs could be enough to help me overcome my problem also.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you have, made a successful recovery.
And Martin was right. It's Narcanon that's Scientology, not Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, I mean, you're right, there are a lot of groups out there that probably would not be receptive to an atheist. I mean, atheism is the minority position in the United States, for sure. So you may not find a group that has atheists with experience working the steps. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood that there are people who do, and that might be an option for people. That if I'm an atheist watching your show with a drug problem, that the information's there, that it's a possibility, and not to, shut it out completely. If it's not in their area, then, it is what it is. And that's the way a lot of the United States is.
There are those secular alternatives. And one of the biggest points that I make is that because of the court rulings, whereas once upon a time you could force people to go to AA, which means they could end up in a group that focuses on the religious aspects.
I would never ask for that. And I don't know anyone in narcotics. We're completely voluntary. Membership is voluntary. Come and go as you please. We'd like you to be here if you like to be here, and if you don't want to be here, go. I mean, as far as
well, so are the religious AAs. I mean, you can be there if you want and go if you don't. That doesn't change whether or not they're advocating for religious ideas, and it doesn't change whether or not they are actually an effective way to encourage change. The fact that
it's as effective as anything that I've seen, and to say that it's not effective because people who don't do it don't stay clean is. It's like if you I know you've spoken before, Matt, that you have diabetes and you take insulin for it. If insulin helps your diabetes and you don't take it, then you're going to have negative health outcomes.
Yeah,
it's a similar thing.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think probably the best advice is, for anyone who is looking for a recovery group is to research that group and make sure that it's right for you. And I would also assume that a lot of it has to do with, to whatever degree the person applies themselves, to whatever process they're undergoing. I mean, you hear 12-step processes are very successful for some people, and the same programs are not successful at all for other people. And I think that whatever program you would get into, it all depends on how the individual applies themselves to that recovery and to that level of determination for the recovery. But yeah, there are some AA groups that emphasize the religious aspect or the higher power aspect more than others. And you're not the first atheist who's been undergoing recovery who has called us up saying, I did AA and it was awesome and they didn't shove God down my throat. So yeah, we know that it's not this endemic thing, but I think there are legitimate criticisms of 12-step programs generally that can probably be made.
And here's the bigger problem. First of all, I don't take insulin. I have other medication. But you know what? We can test insulin and we can test those medications and we can determine exactly how effective they are. We cannot do that for a 12-step program. And well, we can, but AA doesn't permit it because their self-reported statistics on recidivism are dishonest to the core. And this is an objection that's been launched over and over and over again. It's not, hey, you didn't work the program, so it's no surprise that you're back to drinking or back to using. It's, oh, you're back to drinking or back to using, so clearly you didn't work the program. They have it exactly backwards. And so you can't get good recidivism rates on this. So there's no way to determine exactly how effective it is. And what you end up with is a bunch of people for whom it worked, or for whom it appears to have worked, or who are convinced that it worked for them, reporting just how awesome it is. And then a bunch of other people for whom the system did not work, who are written off as failures. It's not a failure of the system, it's these people. I have a huge problem with that. If you could show that AA worked, and at what rates, and on what percentage of the people, and what type of people, to the same extent that you could with insulin, then maybe your analogy would fit.
Okay, I get your point, and I just have, I don't know, it's social problems are more complicated than that.
Yeah,
there are a lot more variables involved. It's hard to control for them. And
I agree. I agree, and it'd be really helpful if Alcoholics Anonymous would stop lying and hiding information so that we could actually get good information about it, but they don't.
I'm not a member of that particular fellowship.
Yeah.
I mean, I will push for that. I agree. I think it would be better to have that information. I would push for that in my own fellowship.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Cool.
we're glad you found something that worked for you, man.
Thank you.
And congratulations, and stay sober.
I will.
Okay.
Thanks for the call, Geoff.
Bye-bye.
All right, Roderick in Rosenberg, Texas. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're all right.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I called to ask you guys.
Can we turn that down?
I grew up in a Southern Baptist family, and where I live in Rosenberg is really Southern. I'm actually from Warden, but you moved out here is really no different. And my parents really grew up that way, and I've been raised that way. I'm a musician. I was raised in the church. That's how I play. But ever since pretty much the age of, I know it's kind of silly, but 5, as I look back, that's when I really started becoming an atheist, because I guess it runs down the family line, but people on me and my dad's side of the family, they're you know, algebra teachers and chemistry teachers. We tend to think logically. And people on my mom's side of the family are more country, you know. But my mom and my stepdad are really strict Christians. And I'm about to get on to college and move on, and I'm engaged. And I'm trying to find a way to tell them before I leave without them seizing my assets. Because
that old problem, yeah.
Yeah, me and my fiance are kind of in a bad situation. Court case, she had to move with her dad. So I only see her every once in a while, and it's, you know, there's just been a shooting threat at her school, and it's, I'm worried, and I need my phone to, you know, keep in communication with her, and I'm a musician, I need my instruments, I'm an artist, I need my, you know, and they...
Why do you feel the need to tell them?
Yeah, I would suggest
Why do you feel the need to tell them?
Don't tell them right now. That would probably be the best policy. This is not the time. I mean, you have a lot of serious things going on, and you're right. I mean, if you lost assets and lost support that you need right now to get through some very real-world issues that you're in the midst of, deal with those first. There will come a time to out yourself to your family, but it doesn't sound like now is it.
Yeah, and which is, I would kind of say, you know, okay, I actually dealt with the same question from somebody else the other day after the Blog Goddess podcast, which was, you know, am I being dishonest? Am I using them? You know, if they would take away my financial support, then the answer is yes. You are clearly being dishonest, and you're using them. And my response is, I don't really care, because I consider it far more immoral for them to hold your education or their love or their support hostage to the fact that you agree with them about whether or not there's an invisible man in the sky.
Yeah. And I think about it all the time. And it also goes into, I'm in high school, it also goes into school, and I'm in football, and I hate football. I want to be a professional wrestler, but my parents are making me play football, so I have to deal with that. And on top of that, me, with the exception of another dude, he's trying to choose whether he's an atheist. I don't know. He's confused, but everybody's like a Christian, and the coaches are like really fundamentalist, and I have to deal with it before every football game. They pray, and my mom also works at the school, and my stepdad works at the junior high right next to it. So there was times where people have asked me, you know, why don't you believe in God? And, you know, I've tried different religions, you know, Satanism was a big one with them, but it bleeds out to my parents, and they found out kind of before, but we've had many arguments, and I've kind of, you know, held them to believe that I'm still a Christian, even though I have really never been one. And it goes into school, too. It really annoys me. Pretty much every day I go to school, you know, I'm getting God put on me. And these people who don't even live, there's a football player on my team. His dad's a chemistry teacher. And he really, I'm telling you, you know, the very thing that your dad is teaching almost disproves, you know, what you're believing. But not even that. They don't even take the time to study it. We've had debates in the locker room. I've gave them packages of verses that contradict themselves, debates, you know, Dan Barker and all these debates, and they're too lazy to go look at it. But then when they're praying and I'm stepping back, they want to shake their head at me, and it you know, pisses me off.
Yeah.
And I have to deal with it.
Yeah. It sucks, but you know, high school sucks for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
That's just one of them. I would say, all I can really say is, you know, this too shall pass. But right now, when you are kind of, you know, under their roof, and you have a lot of other factors in your life where there are just situations that you don't control, that other people have control over those situations in your life. You know, you have your academics, your coaches, the sports you do, and your family, and you kind of have to get along. And it can be amazingly frustrating, you know, to just be constantly bombarded with religious stuff and things that you don't believe, and it's this. Best I could say is this is a test of character at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't really see any kind of response to this other than you're gonna just kind of have to ride it out.
Well, there's a couple things. And I would say, in addition to writing it out,
because we've all been there in the situations where we've had to kind of write it out.
And I would say, in addition to writing it out, write it out. Start a diary, take notes of what's going on, and then when you get on the other side of all this, you can write a book, and that book will resonate with a lot of other people who are stuck in similar situations. But the decision to come out, and by the way, Greta Christina has just written a book on coming out, which is either available now or going to be available soon, and covers a lot of the ground and more than we could possibly cover here. But the decision to come out, you need to be comfortable with all of the possible consequences of being ostracized and alone and having to start over and having relationships end. And you have to care more about being who you are and wanting people to care about you and respect you for who you are than whether or not they care and respect you.
Yeah.
And you'll know when that time comes. And I keep telling people there's no reason to make a big production out of it. We need more out atheists, by, you know, no two ways about it. But if coming out is going to ruin your life, then just stay closeted until we change the world around you where it's a little safer for people to come out.
That's a good idea. You know, start a blog or a Tumblr or something, and just kind of vent there. And, you know, but it's a good idea. It will help you dealing with all of this, and then setting it all down in writing, I think, will also help you process your feelings about all of it.
Yeah, I'm a songwriter, so I get where you're coming from.
There you go.
Write us some more music.
Yeah. Do an album.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Roderick. Appreciate the call.
Good luck to you.
Bye-bye. All right. As a reminder, after the show's over, we go to dinner at El Arroyo. We've changed where we're going to dinner. I can't tell you what to do, but there will be people there, and they'll put the address up on the screen.
Dinner is a thing that happens.
Yes, dinner happens. Kind of like, the stuff that I can't say.
Oh.
Damn it.
Oh, well.
Zach in Michigan, thanks so much for waiting.
Hi. So I just want to put out some facts first. 70% of the Earth is covered in water, right? And scientists have no idea where it came from. You probably heard this already. And I want to know why that couldn't...
What?
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Hello?
Did we...
Zach, are you there? Okay. So we lost Zach. The
God
caller
zapped
thing
his
here,
call.
The call screening thing says, why are you atheists? Also, I have evidence of Noah's flood, for example, fossils. So if the earth is covered in 70% water, I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate that he was saying, why couldn't that be evidence for Noah's flood? Because it's not 100%?
Yeah, it's
I'll
you have to
just go
look
with
at the
that.
geological record, and there's absolutely nothing in the geological record that supports the idea of a global flood.
As far as science not knowing why there's water,
Yeah, I think we understand things like chemistry and
we have a pretty good
molecular
record of
bonds
the history of the earth, but you
Yeah.
know, magic.
How
It's
H-
magic
how
water.
H2O forms.
It's just like the
Yeah.
magic water that they sprinkle over your head at church or dunk you in.
except with less poo in it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite thing about homeopathy is that water has a memory, but it seems to forget all the poo and pee it's added.
I know, amazing, isn't it?
It's because it wasn't shaken just right with the poo.
No.
If you could do homeopathic poo,
Well, you just not eat and never poo, and that would be
so
homeopathic
if like
poo.
cures like, then if you took a really firm poo and did the homeopathic 30C solution to that, would that cure diarrhea?
Yes.
I think so. Something like something.
Science on the show today.
Or something that some people think might be like science a little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
Let me put
You
that
just
one back.
hang up on a dude.
Yeah. Dave in Chicago, thanks for waiting.
Hey guys,
How are you?
I'm doing really good. Huge fan of the show. First time calling in. Just a real quick. The earlier caller about the AA stuff, Matt, you really hit it on the head because I was kind of forced into experiencing some of that myself, and it just really that whole the way they run the groups just really rubbed me the wrong way.
And every group is run differently, so I mean, your mileage may vary.
Yeah. But it was, I really stopped going, and I kind of almost got sober on my own just to spite them. And but what the thing that I wanted to talk about is this strange kind of circumstance that in America, like the Constitution has a pretty explicit separation of church and state. The only thing that the government should say about religion is nothing, and yet we still have one of the most religious developed countries in the world in terms of population. Whereas in Europe, in Scandinavia, excuse me, they are much more secular as a community, but in their constitutions, there's still a pretty surprising amount of state-endorsed religious stuff, like collecting tithes or paying tax to the church, like in England. Even in Germany, at least you get to pick which church you pay a tithe to. But I was just wondering, why do you think that is? Why is there that weird paradox almost?
I think it's because of that. There's an idea running around which I think has some merit to it, which is that if you have a state religion, it squashes competition among religions, and if you don't, as we don't in the United States, then it increases the competition among religions. They're now free to compete in this area of ideas, and so you get more religion. When it is just a ward of the state and it's kind of forced on you to some extent, where it's taught as part of school and you have this one official church religion, even if they have other religions there, it kind of becomes, this is what my grandparents did, this is what people long ago did. It really doesn't have that much appeal to me.
Okay.
And then in the United States, of course, you have mega churches with rock bands and video productions that, while they don't rival Rush, they would rival a lot of smaller bands.
Yeah. And I guess if you look at the history of Europe, with the monarchies and the divine right and how much crap that got into it, do you think people just kind of got burnt out on it just because it was forced?
Well,
on
I
them
think
so much?
that the reason that the Founding Fathers made sure that government and religion could not be intermingled in American politics back when they were drafting the Constitution was because they had all come from Europe and from these cultures where religion and politics were constant bedfellows, and each corrupted the other.
Right.
And so they could see their hundreds and hundreds of years of history testifying to exactly how damaging religion and state mixed could be.
Right.
You know, to one another, to the populations that they're meant to support. So they wanted to make sure that that was a thing that didn't happen here.
Yeah,
So.
and I guess just another thing is I lived all over the Middle East, and I kind of experienced some of the more, I guess you would say, theocratic governments, especially really bad for my mom under Islam rule. But do you think that either we're getting to a point now, or do you think it'll happen in the future where Islam will undergo that kind of backlash, where they'll kind of try to become more secular because it's been forced on them for so long?
Well, I think you're already seeing bits and pieces of that. I mean, you know, you've got a split. You've got different versions of Islam, even around the world. And then when you get, for example, what you see Muslims doing in the UK is different from what you see Muslims doing in the United States. There's not a significant movement of Muslims in the United States that are trying to get Sharia law recognized and have any real sense of it, because there are differences about, you know, the Constitution, the way we do business. But I think in much the same way that kind of Christianity was dragged kicking and screaming from the Dark Ages, I think that Islam may well be dragged kicking and screaming towards a new enlightenment. Hopefully they all just kind of fade away to nothing or next to nothing.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon, though, simply because, you know, we still have quite a number of very powerful nations on the planet that are, you know, open Islamist theocracies and very oppressive ones. Whereas it's been, I think, several centuries since we've had, you know, an openly oppressive Christian theocracy, like an entire nation run that way. And so I guess people have had a head start, you know, in having an enlightenment that is, you know, kind of going against Christian theocracy and those kinds of values. And
I think the trend is towards a more secular world overall, and I think reason and science and evidence tend to win out. But you know, things also kind of go in cycles, and so there's a period where we get more and more religious until it just like breaks its own back and then it drops off. But the trend seems to be towards a move away from at least the old religions. Obviously there's people engaging in all sorts of superstitious New Age woo crap, which I think is probably going to take the place of religion for a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess it just reminds me of, I remember Christopher Hitchens talking about Iran and how the younger generations of Iran are so much more, you know, secular than the previous generations. I think just because it was so forced down on them in their parents' generation.
Yeah. You want to end religion? Get unfettered, unblocked internet access to everybody in the world.
Yeah, and that just reminds me of a joke that he said. He's actually, it was jokingly, of course, in favor of compulsory religious education because that's the most surefire way to produce atheists.
Yep. And I've supported comparative religions courses, and I don't think they should just be elective. I think that this is something important that everybody should learn about. But
yeah, I think that that's the more salient question that I've seen floating around, particularly online, which is, you know, is the internet going to be the thing that finally does religion in? Will religion survive the internet?
Right.
And that's probably not likely, because now anyone, you know, the marketplace of ideas is now much freer.
But the internet's just a fad. It'll go away any day now.
No, as long as there are cats on this planet, there will be the internet. So that's not a worry.
All right. Thanks for the call, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Is it true that I think the only remaining theocracies on Earth are Islamist countries? Are there other religions where there are I mean, like I know India still kind of has its caste system in place, but is it? I think it does.
I know there are official state religions all over the place.
Yeah.
Virtually everywhere. How much of a theocracy they have.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm a stupid American. I speak one language. I don't care about too much stuff beyond, you know, even Austin, because, you know, I'm just an idiot.
Yeah.
But, we get that? Is it Anton in Edmonton?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Hey, thanks for waiting.
So what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we're good. What's up?
Yeah, one-time fan. Glad to talk to you guys. My question is, do you guys think there are any prominent atheists out there that you see on television or on YouTube that are doing more of a disservice to the free thought movement than good?
Disservice in what way? I mean, like,
Well,
internal damage or damage to the perception of the movement? Because, you know, honestly, you could make the case that anybody, any outspoken public atheist is doing damage to the perception of the movement, because we don't all agree, and because people already, many people despise atheists and atheism and the kind of things that movement atheism is working towards. It almost doesn't matter who's saying it.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a case, it's rare when you can even put up the most innocuous atheist sign or billboard in a given community, and there won't be some crazy backlash about it. I mean, if you're like a free thought group will put up a sign saying, hey, if you don't believe in God, you're not alone, right? Call us, which is probably the most unthreatening, innocuous outreach. Specifically, it doesn't even say anything to believers. It doesn't even address believers.
Yeah.
You know, it's an outreach to those people who might be hidden in their unbelief in a believing society. And yet Christians will look at a billboard like that, they will perceive it as a horrible attack upon them, and they'll, you know, make phone calls demanding it's taken down. Sometimes they'll just outright vandalize the thing. So it's, yeah, you can, simply by existing, you know, we're already kind of, you know, pissing off quite a few believers out there.
That said, though, within the atheist, skeptic, secular movements, there's plenty of people that I disagree with. Matter of fact, I've probably disagreed with everybody on something at some point, including myself. And there are certainly people who I think have at times done things that are potentially damaging or harmful to the movement. Some of them do it more than others. Are there many of them that I think are doing more harm than good? Probably not. There may be a handful, but I don't know exactly how prominent they are or how much damage they're doing. It's really hard to say.
The reason I was thinking about this, I'm sure there are many people on the fence, and their first exposure to an atheist would be somebody like Christopher Hitchens. I'm a big fan of, but friends have told me that,
yeah.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know what I believe, or if I don't believe something, and Hitchens is a bit abrasive. Or personally, I'm not a fan of Bill Maher, and he's like in his comedy show, he even says people come up to him after the show and they say, well, I'm just like you, I'm a non-believer, but I think you should maybe be more cordial when you speak about stuff like religion or atheism. Yeah. And he would immediately antagonize you just for disagreeing with him slightly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, sorry.
No, I'm in the position that it takes all kinds, that different people are going to respond to different things, said different ways by different people. And it's sad, and it's the reality is, if you're making your decision about whether or not you believe in God based on the personality of the person you interacted with who doesn't believe in God, you're already starting with some flawed reasoning. But while we recognize that this is actually the case, there are people who would say that I'm not a good representative, and yet I have an inbox full of just hundreds, if not over 1,000 different emails from people who are saying, oh, what you and your teammates have done on the show has changed my life. I used to be, you know, a believer and now I'm not, or I wasn't a skeptic and now I am, and all these things. I have no problem with either diplomats or firebrands involved in the discussions surrounding this movement. I think we need both, because I think some people kind of need to be shocked into trying to challenge us. So there was a guy that, when I wrote for a website, just thought I was nuts. His name was Steve, and he would constantly try to prove me wrong, and this guy's just an ass. And he's an atheist now, because he spent that time desperate to prove me wrong. It's an oversimplification. What I don't like is when firebrands try to tell diplomats that they shouldn't try to be nice, or when diplomats try to tell the firebrands that they're just a bunch of arrogant assholes and they shouldn't be doing that and they're doing harm to the movement. I think it takes all kinds.
Yeah. And usually it's only the people who are already predisposed to dislike a particular idea or movement overall who are going to take this rationale of, oh, well, I reject X because I met a person who was a proponent of X on the internet and they were kind of a dick. So, you know, because they were mean to me on the internet, then screw all of it. You know, again, that's not the reason why an idea is invalid, simply because someone you met who agrees with that idea was rude to you or is rude generally.
It's just like saying, I won't be a Christian because of all the televangelists who are stealing money. Okay, great, but that tells you absolutely nothing at all about whether or not the propositions of Christianity are true.
Yeah. But that's precisely it, because the concern is somebody who is prominent and famous misrepresenting what, I mean, it's a bit of a Scotsman, I guess, fallacy in a way. But,
it's worse for Christianity, because they do have this top-down view. It's not as bad for atheism because I don't represent all of atheism.
Yeah.
And if somebody thinks I do, I don't. You're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Religions are authoritarian sort of by design. Atheism is all about arguing, and not holding.
Question. I was wondering if we have somebody who would be the equivalent of like Bill Donahue, right? Who I don't see many Catholics siding with him when I see him arguing because he's just out there, right?
Yeah.
So maybe thanks to Bill Donahue, we actually have more people on our side, I guess. So.
Well.
I'm wondering if we have anybody that might do the same for us, where we would be. Anyway,
I haven't encountered an atheist who is just as bad at arguing and who's as incapable of controlling his anger and emotion as Bill Donahue. But thankfully, maybe because within atheism, a person like that would just get smacked down pretty quickly. I'm sure there are people exactly that dumb, who are raving on their own blogs that no one reads. But in terms of actual influential people. In the movement, even the most influential names in the movement are people with whom a great many very open and out atheists vehemently disagree on the side or the other. In fact, Richard Dawkins takes as much beating from atheists on Twitter as he does from other Christians, just for one or another opinion that he might have on some other subjects. So, and I think that's a strength of the atheist movement, is that we don't have this whole authoritarian top-down idea of no, such and such a person, that whatever they say goes. That's how it works. They're the ones who are handing us the scripture and the dogma.
When the infighting gets to the point that it's stifling actual progress, then you've got a huge problem, and we should stop way short of that.
Yeah.
But the fact that there are people who disagree on secondary and tertiary issues, who might work, I disagree with the Reverend Barry Lynn on whether or not a God exists, but he and I will stand side by side and have shared the same podium, one right after the other, on behalf of church-state separation. And so if I can do that, I can work with, Bill Maher has some horrible positions on science that I've spoken about before. But when it comes to, opposing religion, we're in alignment, kind of.
Sounds great.
Anyway,
all right.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks for taking it, guys. Cheers.
Sure.
So long. Just pick one, anyone. We're good.
Okay. Rod in Charlotte, how are you?
Hello, Rod.
I'm doing well. Good afternoon. How are you all doing?
Fine. Thank you for calling.
Good.
Thank you. I'll get straight to the point. Just wondering if you all would be interested in offering up some advice to an individual who, former Christian, on the path to enlightenment, searching for truth. I personally, I've heard the atheist argument, the opinions, very much interested in it. Just wondering, how does someone overcome, I guess, the fears and indoctrination that comes from, what's rooted in Christianity? How do you move beyond that point? Because we're taught in religion that there are very real and serious consequences for denying God. So how do you move beyond that?
So first of all, there's a group called Recovering from Religion, which specializes in helping people with this. They are even putting together a hotline. There are also counselors like Marlene Winnell, who's talked about religious trauma syndrome and actually counsels people. I've heard from people who've been atheists for 30, 40, 50 years who still wake up with nightmares of the threat of hell, et cetera. It really depends on how big of a problem this is.
The fear aspect of the indoctrination is incredibly powerful, and it can't really be understated, I think, how damaging it is as an aspect of it. So, and all I can say is that it is simply something that takes time. It takes time, and it takes, you have to, over years, as you grow a little bit more confident in yourself, and things like, the fear of death and the fear of hell, or the fear of this or that or the other consequence, they may never entirely go away, but they will be significantly reduced. I mean, I no longer see hell as a concept to take seriously, but there were still many, many years of, the whole Pascal's wager idea of what if. Yeah, I mean, it's on its surface, it's a very easy argument to refute, but when it gets you in your emotional centers, that's still, the impact of that can't be minimized, and it should be taken seriously among people who are really trying to leave their religion. And you just need to kind of understand that and give yourself that time and allow yourself, just whatever room you need to grow away from it at your own pace.
I didn't actually suffer from this too much. I can tell you a little bit about the thoughts that went through my head on the subject that for me kind of quickly got rid of any of that. And that is, while I was a Christian, how much time did I spend worrying about some other religion's version of heaven or hell? And the answer was zero. And so now that I'm not a Christian, how much time should I spend worrying about Christianity's version of heaven and hell? Certainly in comparison to worrying about those other religions. If I didn't care about them then there's no reason to worry about it now. And the other one is that there's nothing I can do about it either way. And as long as I am honestly living an intellectually honest life, if there's some God that's going to punish me for that, then he's a moral thug. And I wouldn't care to be friends with him in the first place. Why on earth would I care to appease? If there is a God who can squish me like a bug, great. What does that prove? Does it prove that I should, suck up and do things that I find to actually be immoral on behalf of this God for fear that I might get squished? No. And because I don't think it's real at all, I don't spend a moment worrying about it.
And I think that's great advice. I walked away from religion. It's been 20 years ago, and I haven't given it much thought since. But now, getting older and reflecting and wanting the truth, there's nothing that makes me want to believe in any organized religion at all. And I would just rather accept what is real and what is true. And like I said, I've heard lots of debates for atheist opinions. I agree with them. It's rational. It's logical. It makes sense. And it's all about just taking that first step and moving beyond that brick wall I have, I guess.
Well, just give yourself, as much time as you need. Take it at your own pace. Don't feel, there's no rush on any of this. It's got to be a very organic process.
Right. Well, thank you all very much. I do appreciate it. It's great advice and definitely food for thought. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Rod.
Take care.
I'm actually more worried about what's going to happen on the next season of Orphan Black than I am about anybody's hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
or any number of shows. And these are trivial things. There's so much more to life and enjoying life that if you find that you're constantly worrying about something that you cannot change, you can go back to the God grant me the wisdom to tell the difference between the two, only you don't have to appeal to God. You can just do this on your own.
What I usually encourage people to do also is, okay, think about this aspect of it specifically. You're afraid right now. So at a certain point in your upbringing, in your Christian indoctrination, in your youth or something, those ideas were implanted in you. And think about, if an idea has to enforce compliance through fear, what does that say about the idea, the value of the idea? Not just the truth value of it, but the moral value of it. If you have to be terrorized into accepting a belief and then adhering to a belief above all else, that should say something. And you should really, really consider the value of the belief at that point.
If there was a God that cared more about the fact that you believed something, and in particular, if you believed it without good evidence, and this was a good thing, there's already a problem with that God's reasoning abilities. But
the real problem that I have with Christianity generally is that it is, when you cut it right to the quick, it is a carrot and stick religion, right? Heaven is the carrot that they dangle in front of you, and hell is the stick that they beat your ass with to make sure that you're constantly chasing that carrot. And that's not, I don't think, either a moral or an intellectual way, I think, to build up a person so that they are a happy, rational individual as an adult.
It's funny, especially when you're talking about religions where people claim to have, for example, a personal relationship. I have a personal relationship with a lot of people. I can demonstrate this really easily. Curiously, this personal relationship they have with Jesus is not only personal, but completely private, and nobody else can look at it.
Right.
And yet, each of them have this personal relationship, and they're getting different information, which demonstrates that none of them actually, or at least no more than one of them, actually has this personal relationship. I can't say none. One of them might have got it right, and it may just be that this.
Or maybe Jesus is this big chameleon who can just be anyone to anyone, But then then what's the point? Right?
How did you determine that God's the good one and Satan's the evil one again? Because God wrote it in your heart. Oh, how convenient. And if Satan had written it in your heart, then you would find Satan to be the good one, right?
And how would you tell the difference?
Yeah. All right.
Onward.
Oop, did that work?
I don't think so.
John in Ottawa.
Well, hi guys. How are you today?
Pretty good.
Thanks for calling.
Well, what a treat to talk to you guys. I watch your show all the time, and you really help me with my arguments when I talk to people about religion, etc. But the reason I'm calling is because you're talking about the 12-step programs. I'm an RN. I worked over 35 years in the field, and I'm also an atheist. And I always was confused with the spiritual aspect of AA. And after reading Doc and stuff, I started to look into it more, although I never worked on the addiction unit myself. And when I learned a lot about it, and the original AA, yeah, granted, it did come about from religious concepts. Back in the 1920s, there was no cure for addiction. And but there were things there was in England. There was a Cambridge or Oxford group. It was a group of alcoholic men who would get together for an evening of fellowship at a church hall. Carl Jung started to realize a lot of his alcoholic patients were suddenly getting off the bottle, and then there was this Bill W. in the States who started AA back in the 20s.
Yes.
And I'm going on here, but let me just cut to the point, is that the AA is a 12-step program, and addiction seems to be a disease that has sequence to it. Like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a famous psychiatrist back in the 60s, came up with the death and dying concept.
Yeah.
And she found out that it was a sequential problem, and people had to go through 5 steps to come to terms with their grief.
Right.
And the counselor helps a person go through those 5 steps. And AA came up with the 12-step program. And you know, you guys, and I do too. When I talk to atheists, show me the proof is this or that. Well, I can tell you that I was speaking to an addiction doctor not long ago, and I asked him, well, what percentage of alcohol and drug rehab programs use the 12-step program? And he thought it was probably about 95% was his rule of thumb. 95%. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that of drug and alcohol programs use the 12-step program as their basis for treatment.
So what?
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about. We're not talking about a bunch of preachers here. We're talking about addiction specialists, most of them being psychiatrists. So they're not only medical doctors, they did 5 years.
So what?
I think it's...
No one's saying that this does not work. My objection was that we do not have statistics to tell at what rate it works or whether it is the most effective way.
Well, I'd like to see those statistics that when you come out with that. There's this conspiracy that AA is hiding all their facts and figures. I don't see it personally, gentlemen.
Okay, here's the thing. I haven't proposed a conspiracy. You can go out and do the research. Alcoholics Anonymous does not publish recidivism rates that allow us to actually test the effectiveness of the program.
But the programs themselves test. They have their statistics on how successful they are.
Yeah, okay. I think the question is how reliable is that self-reportage? See, it's a matter. There's a similar problem came up when there was a late evangelist by the name of Charles Colson, and he ran this, a prison kind of rehabilitation program. And the problem with his figures was that he was easily able to misreport that his program was more successful than it was, simply because in order to be considered even a participant in the program at all, you had to go through every single stage of the program through completion, which involved not only, you do your time, you get out, you get a job, you hold on to the job, whatever, you become a fully functioning member of society again. But if at any point during that process you bail for whatever reason or another, it's as if you're not even counted as ever having been a participant in it to begin with. And so what that allowed was a lot of disingenuous reporting that the program was more successful than it was because failures were just disincluded altogether. And so there's a concern that the way in which these 12-step programs report does a very similar thing. If you don't get all the way through the process And if you don't, get clean and stay clean for this or that or the other, they just, don't consider you to have been, if you're not a success, then you're just not there. You're down the memory hole, and you have to start from square one.
And the program doesn't end.
Yeah.
Ever. You're an
so,
addict for life, and you have to keep working the program. So there's this. That's the issue. It's not like you can graduate from it.
But the premise, right, that, for example, addiction and recovery are a step-by-step process, that's not anything that we have a problem accepting, just as a concept. I mean, it makes a great deal of sense that, people generally do in their lives, especially with something as complicated as that. It is a process that you go through. It's not just, oh, one day you're a drunk, and so, it's.
If you read through the DRM and what the DRM has to say about addiction.
You're talking about the DSM, I think.
Sorry, I said DRM. And then, digital rights. The DSM.
Online piracy is a process, Matt. Yeah.
So it may be the case that we have stumbled on the truth about addiction, and that the 12 steps accurately model the broad, different types of addiction in a way that actually is the best way to deal with it and handle it. The problem is that we have no way of demonstrating that this is the case, and the fact that it has taken hold because of probably faulty self-reported statistics about its effectiveness, and the fact that it was court mandated in many cases, which gave that program and programs like it a privileged status to the exclusion of other avenues of exploration. There's still a lot we don't know about the brain and how it works and addiction and stuff like that. And my objection isn't this is a complete crap program that doesn't work. It's we have no way of determining how effective this is or if it's the most effective. And as long as it continues to get this preferential kind of privileged status based on faulty information, I think we're stuck.
No, I understand. You make perfect sense. And I actually agree with what you're saying. But I'd like to point out to you that every patient I've seen who has been admitted, say, to the mood disorder clinic or the unit or the affective disorder clinic at my hospital, etc., if they have an alcohol problem, they're referred to addictions and to the 12-step program. Every psychiatrist I know.
Yes.
Every psychiatrist believes.
What other options do they have?
Well, we have peer-reviewed journals on addiction and on psychiatry and on mental health.
What we mean
if someone were to come up with a better solution and to say, well, no, this is all hook'em or it doesn't work, or there's a better way.
That's not the case.
Yeah, but
those would be published, they'd be peer-reviewed, and you'd become very famous.
Wow.
Well,
you just said you agreed with me, and then you said something that's the exact opposite. It has nothing to do with what I was saying. Anyway, we have completely run out of time. They just posted the credits up.
Well, listen, guys, thanks for your hard work, and I really enjoy your show.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks for your input.
Bye.
So that's it for us this week. Next week, I'll be in Salt Lake City for the American Atheist Convention, but there should still be a show. Russell will be on with somebody else, and we'll be going to El Arroyo any minute now.
That it will be. We had a great studio audience today. That's good crowd, so thank you, everyone.